So let's talk about Raw.
Yeah.
Now, last week, if you didn't hear last week's show, I would go back and listen to it because we did like the longest review. And it wasn't even long; it was just thorough because there was so much stuff surrounding that inaugural show. I was reading observers and kind of digging in and just lots of stuff about that show, and we both sort of surmised like this was kind of like it should have been like a test show, but they went live with it. I feel like they learned so many things for episode 2. Like episode 2 was not perfect, even though Mr. Perfect is heavily involved in this show, but it was such a good, tight 1 hour. And I think it starts because Rob Bartlett is turned down so much.
Big time. Big time. He says one joke like early on when they're just shooting to the death. This is after the beginning and Macho Man's kind of all riled up about Repo Man. And like I forget the joke, but it was like, Vince's face is classic. He just looks to gives him that side eye and goes, okay. Like he just kind of like blows him off.
The one time he pops Vince is he uses the old line, and nobody who is younger than maybe if you're in your 30s, you know this joke. But Rob Bartlett uses the "I've fallen and I can't get up" joke. And Vince pops. Like Vince actually pops. Like it was a legitimate laugh. But I think that's the only time that Vince laughed. But, I like the idea that you have this comedian. We talked about the Dennis Miller comparison from when Monday Night Football tried to do it. Like, it is a great idea, but if you had a comedian who understood the product and who followed the product enough to where they didn't seem out of place on stuff, I think it could work. The problem is just that Rob Bartlett doesn't know anything about wrestling, and it shows. And when he tries to make a joke, it is often not even really related to what's going on in the ring, and thus it's like crickets. And so this episode, like they just really dialed him back. Like the beginning of the show starts, and he's got a picture of Bobby Heenan. Like, could they have like a little bit bigger picture? It was like a wallet-sized photo of Bobby Heenan.
I think it was the trading card, wasn't it?
Oh, is that what it was?
I think it was, yeah.
I'm like, God, I like had to squint to see what it was, and it's just a picture of Bobby Heenan. And he just rips it in half, and it's kind of like him saying, like, this is I'm on the show, not you, Heenan. And then immediately, poor Macho Man is just like in the stand-up doing the intro. And gets attacked. Hat flies off. You get to see his terrible hair and his balding hair. And Repo Man attacks him and steals his hat. And that's kind of like an ongoing storyline. But it is nicely not that that's necessarily a match that I ever want to see, or a feud that I thought would ever be a big deal. But they lead, they do it's a sort of a whole show storyline that leads into what they're hyping for the next show that they'll actually get in the ring. And Macho Man's actually near the end of the show, he's really fired up. He's doing a great job to be pissed off the Repo Man. So it's kind of like it was a little bit of a shock start to the show.
Yeah, I love it. You can't do it every show, but every once in a while you have to do something like that, and it was great. Bam, from the back, such a great shot by Repo Man, and Savage goes down. And by the way, I don't know if you got the 1993 memo, but we should be talking about Randy Savage's ball spot. WWE memo for 1993. And it's probably when this happened, I'm like, man, this might be the only thing that Repo Man's ever done with this character in the WWE, right? I don't remember anything else he really did other than had a really cool theme song. But yeah, there's a whole long show storyline. Savage is pumped up because Savage don't want to be behind that desk, man. Savage wants to wrestle and be involved and be a main player. So, he's working hard to sell this match for next week.
And so that leads us into the first match, and I don't even remember Terry Taylor in WWF as not the Red Rooster.
You don't remember Terrific Terry Taylor coming back?
I don't remember Terrific Terry Taylor.
I remember that. I remember when he came back and it was Terrific Terry Taylor. I'm like, I can't believe he went back there. That's my first thought. And it's interesting. It didn't last that long, from what I remember.
Yeah, I was about to ask you how long did this stint last?
Well, because he ends up back in WCW in October '93 because he's a special guest referee for Flair versus Rick Rude at Halloween Havoc '93.
Okay,
and I think that's when he kind of transitions to like on the booking committee or producer role or something. I know he still wrestles in '94 here and there, but he was not like a full time or featured or anything. But yeah. So he didn't last that long because he was in WCW. I'm trying to remember when he left WCW. It must have been late '92, and he was in the Royal Rumble in '93. He shows up there. And other than that's the only thing he really did, and during that run, and he, like I said, I think he goes back to WCW, and that's when he ends up starting to go into that role of producing, booking, and all that.
he's really good in this match.
Yeah, he's great. Terry Taylor's a great wrestler. I remember, man, long time ago, Tom Castor and I, on one of our many shows we did together, we were at this show in fucking Antioch. Sorry, people at Antioch listening. Fucking town. And there's a company called Brawl, and it's a short-lived company. I think it's a Brick Luxury did it, and some other people, local indies in the area. And this one guy's telling me, he's talking about Terry Taylor. We're talking about Mid-South Wrestling, right? He's like, yeah, I was watching Mid-South Wrestling, and Terry Taylor's really good. I thought he was a shits, but he's really good. And I'm like, all right, I don't want to talk about your wrestling with you anymore. You think Terry Taylor was a shits. You don't know anything about wrestling. So I kind of just like blew out the conversation after that. And I remember Tom Castor talking about like, the guy, how does he not know that freaking Terry Taylor's good, right? But he's really good. And that was a good match with Mr. Perfect, that opener. That was really good.
It was a great match, and I think people will remember the one that they'll remember more is the one from SummerSlam, like several years prior when he was the Red Rooster, and that's a little bit more of like kind of like a squash match. This match is, I mean, it's to sort of set up, Mr. Perfect's about to go on a run here. He's not that far removed. It's only been not even a month and a half from him returning after being out for so long because of that injury. And then, when Warrior gets fired, and then they have Perfect turn to be Macho Man's partner for that SummerSlam match against Razor Ramon and Ric Flair, that's only like a month and a half prior to this match. So I don't know how many matches he had in between, but really it's kind of like to get Perfect geared up for the Flair match. And I really like this match. You see the Terry Taylor busts out the spine buster. He busts out like a gut wrench power bomb. Like I was like, man, Terry Taylor, Go ahead with your bad self.
He didn't do the spine buster in WCW because that was Arn's move, but he did do the Dr. Bomb, the side gut wrench power bomb in WCW. I remember loving that move every time he'd do it. He'd always like put it in a match. And of course, the classic Terry Taylor chin breaker. Right? That makes an appearance, of course. It's just a really good, solid wrestling match. It's awkward to me to see babyface fist pumping Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel natural. I mean, he's just a natural heel. So, but it was good, and Flair came out. That Terry Taylor did a good job of drawing the referee away so they wouldn't see the interference from Ric Flair. But I love this match. It's definitely my type of match.
And you mentioned Flair. Flair gets involved. Perfect still wins the match, but just really, really good stuff. And
circle back. You mentioned that Perfect and Terry Taylor wrestled when he was Red Rooster at SummerSlam '89. I believe you said a squash match, but I believe it was supposed to go longer. Terry Taylor ended up hitting his knee, and that's why they had to go home early.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
So the last week we mentioned how can you kind of do the first Raw ever and not have the champ on? They have the champ. They have Bret Hart does an interview. Now, actually, his first appearance is like a segment prior. He's in like an Ico Pro commercial, and then they do the interview. And I don't know. I'm like kind of underwhelmed. Like I didn't really, he's pushing the match with Razor. He's gonna have they're gonna do that match, at Royal Rumble, which is the next Sunday. But kind of underwhelmed with Bret. I know they're pushing Bret hard. They're putting him on Regis and Kathy Lee before the Royal Rumble. So he's definitely like the face of the company, and he's out there, with the title and pushing it. But I don't know, just kind of like a little underwhelmed with Bret in this interview.
I think he's also still in the process of learning to be the guy, right? He just won the belt in October, October 12th of 92 or something like that. So I've been the champion for like 3 months. So I think he's still finding his way to what he becomes, a year later, I thought it was a good promo. I mean, it was a great promo. I think it did its job. He said his bullet points well and got over what they wanted to get over. And, I think Bret's kind of a guy that can do just a subpart, like just a good promo and still be captivating because he just has that coolness about him. Like that's what I get. That's what I really got from that interview. Like just reminding the coolness of Bret Hart, just how he was such a cool guy that I remember. Funny story about it's more of a Tom Castor story. He was telling me that when he was a kid, his dad took him to go see WWF at the event center, and it was like a B show, and the main event was Mr. Perfect and Bruce Beefcake, but there was the second main event was the Hart Foundation versus Demolition, and his dad wasn't really, he's taking his son to go watch wrestling. He's not really into it, right? But he's just there to take his kid, and his dad tells him, I'll never forget the story that Tom told me. His dad goes, "You know what? That guy Bret Hart, that guy's something." In 1989, so that's just a tag guy that wasn't really featured as highly at the time, but so he always had something about him. I mean, what you thought of Bret when you were a kid watching Hart Foundation? I always thought he was just the coolest.
So I liked Bret. I think in his first Intercontinental Championship run, actually no, I would say probably his second. Well, in between, I thought he was awesome. Like I even liked that version of Bret more than some of his WWE title runs. I just thought that was the perfect version of Bret Hart.
Yeah, that was cool when they went with him as the IC champ and went singles with him, and he took the ball and he ran with it. Man, talk about an investment, because he was there for a long time, and then he went. And they decided to go that way with him. I mean, that was really cool.
And I know we're talking a lot about Mr. Perfect, but part of that, right? Part of Bret is beating Perfect at SummerSlam. Mm-hmm. Like that was such a big moment, such a great match.
It's probably one of my all-time favorite WWF matches of all time. If I had to make a list of your top 10 or 20 matches, that match is definitely on there. That match is, I mean, to this day, still fantastic. And you put that on now, and it still holds up.
And Perfect's back is jacked up, and he's just gutting the whole thing out. It's just amazing performance.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that show, because that show sucked.
Okay, so the next match is Marty Jannetty against Glenn Ruth. And I'm going to ask you this question. Is this the same Glenn Ruth who becomes a headbanger 3 years later, or whatever it is?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Glenn Ruth for the Headbangers.
Almost like you can't even tell. How do you even tell it's the same guy?
Well, here he is with some hair and tie-dye shorts. He's just a generic wrestler. But he's in that. We'll see a lot of these guys that we remember from that went on to other things, but like ECW, whatnot, because they're in New York, so they're using a lot of indie talent that in the area for who worked for promoter Dennis Carluzzo. So he was the Spider or something like that, I think, on the indies and stuff. So that's where Jim Cornette saw him on those Carluzzo shows and put them together and made them the Headbangers. And it was cool. And they got a lot of time. So
there's this one spot, and you tell me if I'm You tell me if this was just great wrestling, but Ruth runs into the corner and Marty just drills him with what looks like an elbow right to the collarbone. I was like, oh man, that looked rough, but it could have been just great, like, pro wrestling. Do you remember this spot?
It doesn't really stand out, but I didn't remember seeing anything big like that. I mean, it was probably just solid because he looked fine through the whole match. Just a nice, probably perfectly timed spot. And you said he got him the collarbone with the back elbow, probably, right?
Yeah, like he charged Marty in the corner, and Marty threw an elbow. It looked stiff, but I mean, maybe it was just them like working a little snug. But it looked great. But I was just like, oh man, I wonder if this dude is hurt.
I just remember like the match got a lot of time because of the Shawn Michaels call-in interview, and it was funny because they go home right after the Shawn Michaels hangs up. So I was trying to figure out where the signal was coming from for I'm guessing it was the guy at ringside with them at the desk that does all the timekeepers giving signals and stuff, I'm sure they get a sign to the ref told him to go home. But it was like boom, hung out the phone. All right, Shawn Michaels, and then Marty Jannetty hits his finisher, and you could just man, Marty Jannetty just on his own, it just doesn't have much. I mean, I know he ends up having a great match with Shawn later in the year, but like just like you tell, like splitting them up was probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too because it's not like Marty's not good because Marty's good, but there's a charisma piece that is just really missing with him and Shawn not together, and he looks like. He's still got the rocker stuff on, and Shawn has moved away from looking like the rockers, and he's like got his own thing. Like, I wonder if they would have tried to give him a little bit more of a gimmick than make him look like the guy who got dumped by Shawn Michaels. Like, because that's literally his story for so long is this is the guy that got dumped by Shawn Michaels, and we're going to let Shawn look the part and have this new character and just create this sort of like the heartthrob of the WWF. And Marty is just like can't get over not being the Rockers anymore, and that was like his character. And I really wonder if they could have done something more with Marty, though. I mean, he would have screwed it up anyways because he ended up doing that often, but. What if you had been in that situation and you're like, okay, we're going to split up Shawn and Marty. I mean, would you have given Marty like a new look and a little bit of a gimmick?
No, I don't think it's worth investing in because he didn't have that any charisma. He just didn't have that. I mean, he was perfect in the tag setting, so maybe you can find a new partner for him and go that route. But then, like, it's probably not going to get compared to anything that he's done with Shawn, so it's always going to be second to that. Like, so I mean, the only time that he actually had some kind of spark is when him and 1-2-3 Kid won the tag titles.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it happened in early '94. Actually, around this time, '94 January. They only had the titles for like a week, and they lost it. I think at the Royal Rumble or something like that. So, I probably because he's a really good wrestler. I would probably just make him a lower mid card guy and put over the heels coming up kind of situation, or put him with guys heels that are not that really need more guiding in the ring or something like that. Definitely, but Marty, excuse me. I think he holds the record for being fired and rehired by the WWE. So
yeah,
and I'm sure he gets fired after this and comes back again. I know, by May. So, yeah, probably. I mean, if he was, I probably, like I said, keep him down low on the card. Nice mid card babyface guys. That's the spot where I would slot him in.
After this is Mean Gene's Royal Rumble report, and I mean, there's no news to this, and there's no, but it, with Mean Gene passing away, just a couple weeks ago, he was so good at this type of hype and this type of promotion because Mean Gene, unlike me, was never going to say, or so, or, like he's so crisp and everything about him, was just so smooth. The one thing that when you're watching like every single show, so let's say you're watching Raw, you're watching Superstars, and you're watching Wrestling Challenge, you would see this same thing 3 times over the weekend.
Yep.
So I, watching it this one time on Raw, going like, wow, I really missed this. And then remembering like, okay, I remember seeing it like 4 times every week. So, okay, so we get to the main event. El Matador against Ric Flair. There's something weird. There's like 2 weird things about this match. Actually, maybe even 3 weird things. But Flair is over like crazy with the live fans. They're just like going crazy for everything he does in this match.
Oh yeah, it was in New York, man. That hardcore. That was a hardcore crowd at the Manhattan Center. They're definitely. I think even Vince kind of makes a remark about it, and yeah, no, that was cool, and it was a good solid match.
So, how many of those fans do you think were actually observer readers and knew what was going on?
I think a ton of those guys were hardcore, go to all the shows, go to all the indies in the area kind of guys,
Okay, another thing that's kind of weird when you're watching it is, for whatever reason, Earl Hebner is counting so fast on every pin. He's just like, and to the point where Vince is like calling him out on it. Like,
yeah,
he's literally calling him out for fast counts.
Yeah, because like I don't know, he's funny. God, we need to get Tom Caster on our show because like no, seriously, man, like Tom will explain to you there's different counts for different situations, and there's the winning count. I mean, it's a certain way to do that. If a heel goes over, a babyface goes over. There's for near falls, of course. There's and like yeah, right on like what's Earl on? Like what did he have in the punch bowl before the show started? Like he was like slamming that mat like. Who knows? But yeah, it was kind of awkward, and it did take away from the match a little bit.
You mentioned the counts for the baby faces winning. I was listening to one of Austin's podcasts. It was probably from a couple months ago. He was going through sort of like he pulled out like his old briefcase, which had a bunch of old pictures in them, and so he was kind of like just going through the memories of back in the day. And he said, the Tyson, the match against Shawn Michaels where he wins the WWE title at WrestleMania 14, he said the only qualm he has about that match is Tyson doesn't do the classic championship babyface winning the title 3 count. He says Tyson doesn't understand the cadence of how that count was supposed to happen, and that was the only thing that he thought was maybe not perfect about that moment.
And you get that all the time with special guest referees, all the time. And yeah, so I'm not surprised that happened there with Big Iron Mike. But yeah, I don't remember that. I just remember that match. I don't remember that. Now I want to watch that match to see that little moment.
Yeah.
But it's a big thing. A lot of people don't respect referees. They think it's just they just go out there and count threes and they're just there. But shush. They have such a huge role. It's such an important role. And I'm so into referees because, one of my best friends is a great referee. So, like, when I'm watching these freaking indie shows, I'm like, look at this fucking guy out there. Like, it just, like, totally takes me out of the match. Like, seeing, I'm not a great in shape guy, but like I think that a referee should look like an athlete himself, like looks what's not just like this, just some guy off the street that should be working at freaking Subway. You know what I mean? Like it just bothers me. That's just going on a rant, but yeah, no, it's a very important role, and why is he counting so damn fast?
I know.
Gosh, I wish we could find the answer to that. I'm gonna say he was in the punch bowl and had a little too much. I don't know.
So the third thing that was really weird, and I don't even know, they didn't even reference it, so I don't know if it's that noticeable, but early in the match, Vince says something. I think if Vince just goes like, El Matador, and maybe it was the way he said Matador, But Bartlett starts giggling for like 10 seconds, and he doesn't stop. He just keeps laughing. And I wonder if it was just because of the way that Vince said El Matador, but he just, for whatever reason, just starts giggling for a good 10 seconds in a row. So after that stuff happens, this is a classic Ric Flair TV match, right? Like, the one thing, if you're going to have an issue with this match, is this often happened with Tito Santana, is for whatever reason, he was kind of a dumb babyface, and he hits his finisher on Rick right in the middle of the ring. And instead of going for the pin, gets up and wants to do it again. Rick is near the ropes, so it's like, you're probably not going to be able to hit this move. Tito just literally jumps over the top rope. just like Jesus Christ, dude.
Know, the timing on that was a little off, but yeah, it looked like he just threw himself over the top rope, but took a crazy bump though.
I was like, oh my God.
That was a great bump though. I mean, shit, he went flying out of the ring. Okay, now Tito Santana's defense. You're right. He hit the big flying forearm. Now that's Tito Santana before El Matador. The flying forearm was his finisher. Do you remember his finisher as the El Matador?
It was like the guy would be bent over and he'd like hit him with like a punch on the top of the head.
It was like they're doing those spears where they used to kill the bull, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it was, right? And I remember being like, when he came as El Matador and he did that move, I'm like, you literally went from a great flying forearm that looks
so good
to this crappy finish. Like, I remember, like, I did not like El Matador or Tito Santana. Nope, didn't like it. I understand why they did it. They're trying to, get some, bring some color, some new life to Tito Santana. But you know what? I like good old white boots, white trunks, Tito Santana on the gas. It was it's a bummer seeing little skinnier Tito Santana out there as El Matador, and I mean, he's still such a great wrestler, but that's why he didn't go for the pin, because he has this. But
wait,
but come on, Tito, this is your move for how many damn years? Like, go for the damn pin.
Okay, you know what I wanted him to do? I wanted him to put the figure 4 on, because remember back in the day he used to put the figure 4 on. He didn't do it, but okay. So I apologize to Tito. I forgot that he was setting up for that other move, which was actually his finisher.
What should have happened was the flying forearm, but Flair, of course, bumps closest to the ropes. 1, 2, foot on the ropes. That's all they should have done. Right?
Yeah.
To protect Tito from not looking like a dipshit, because I mean, for the years and years, that was his move, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no.
All right. So, there was a little bit of weirdness with the end of that match, but perfect jumps, perfect interferes in the match, and so all hell breaks loose, and they go to the back, and they're just like fighting all the way to the back, and then they come back from commercial, and Vince wants to do an interview with Rick. And they're fighting coming back through the curtain again.
Cool.
And like, I don't know, there was a bunch of guys, Sergeant Slaughter, Pat Patterson, a few other guys who were able to pull Perfect back so that Flair could do his interview, which was fantastic because he was just hyping this. Like, it was a little weird because I don't know if this is necessarily correct, but I always like to see the babyface kind of do that crazy challenge where, he puts his career on the line, and instead it's Flair, basically saying like, I'm going to put my career on the line. You and I in this ring next week, winner stays, loser has to leave WWF. And Flair was so great. He was just like Vince is like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why would you do this? And the reason is because he is going to WCW, so this is his way out. Now, as a booker, okay, this is sort of the play. This is Vince. I think this is Vince like Vince is like, his mindset and the way that he puts his stuff together. Vince is like 2007 Tim Lincecum right here. So Vince's competition is WCW. Obviously, WCW is not doing very well right now. WWE's not doing well either, but they're doing way better than WCW. So Vince, knowing that Flair is going back to WCW, he gets his guy to beat Flair next week. We're not like we're spoiling something that happened, 30 years ago, but he gets his guy to beat who is going to be one of WCW's top guys immediately. Like when he starts wrestling, he there's a period where he's not really wrestling, but like his guy beats WCW's guy to send him to WCW. Like that was kind of amazing that they were able to do that.
I think, well, one, Flair's a class act, right? When it comes to,
but it's different from like a house show that 10,000 people see, right?
yeah, it's different than the usual where the guy goes and, he's doing the loop around the house shows, losing, right? That no one's going to see other than if you're at the house show, right? But, I think Flair's a class act. He was really good friends with Mr. Perfect. He wanted to leave Mr. Perfect in a better spot, when he left. And also Vince had that deal with Flair. Like, Flair said, if I'm not going to be on top of the card, I would like to be able to go back to WCW, and he doesn't want to be a heel that's going to be mid card, right?
Yep.
So and Vince kept that agreement. So like I'm sure he wanted to do something big on his way out, and I would have liked to see them stretch it. I mean, I wish they had a little more time with Flair at this point. I think it would have been nice to it would have been a nice opener of Raw. The first episode of Raw would be like a Flair Bret Hart match where Bret Hart beats Flair. That would have been cool, something like that. But I mean, still, this is cool. I mean, I'm like looking forward to rewatching episode 3 because, like I said, I have a fun little story about that match, and that's a Raw episode I will never forget. Not because they had a great match, but just because of that night. It was just it's memorable for me as my wrestling fandom.
So, just a couple of tidbits. I'm reading through the old Observers, and a couple of things that are happening at this time. So Razor Ramon is going into this match with Bret Hart with a bum knee. He was injured when he did the interview in the first show, and so he's kind of going in there with a bad wheel. Hogan, like we said last week, Hogan is in full sort of like comeback mode. He's talking to he's in the media. He's talking to these different newspapers and stuff. And here's a Hogan quote. I don't remember which newspaper this was, but he basically says, "They've got a guy named Bret the Hitman Hart who is champion now. I could beat him with my eyes closed. He couldn't even lace up my boots." What a dick.
Yeah, but he's angling for a match too. But yeah, he's being a dick. But yeah, they never got around to doing that match in WWF. I remember they were promoting it. They had posters, right? They had graphics and just Vince went to Hogan didn't want to be beat by Bret, and they gave it back to Yoko, which wasn't a bad move. In the end, I think Yoko was a great champ.
So the other small tidbit is the Raw tickets for that show were $12 each. So
man,
so if you wanted to be at the Manhattan Center in 1993, you only had to pay $12. And Big Dave surmised that about 600 of those 1,000 fans that were in the crowd were paid. So they couldn't even fill up the stinking Manhattan Center for $12 a ticket for Russ. That's how cold they are back then.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit to end this show about the Flair Perfect build up to their match, because I was trying to think. I was like, why are they so mad at each other? And then I sort of thought back. I was like, okay, so when Flair comes in at the end of '91, it's Heenan, and Heenan can't go on the road. He's a little dinged up. He's got the neck issues. So instead, Mr. Perfect is the one who goes on the road with Ric Flair as his advisor. And then we fast forward to the Survivor Series that I was talking about that happened a month and a half before this show. And you have the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Randy Savage scheduled to face Ric Flair and Razor Ramon in the main event of that show. What happens is Davey Boy Smith and the Ultimate Warrior both get fired at the same time. Do you even remember what happened here?
Like when Perfect took the spot?
Or like why Warrior and Bulldog were fired?
Wasn't it over the steroids? Because they were cracking down on it? And they were, I don't know if they used a sample or something. They got busted for something. I think it was steroids, right?
So I asked our friend Big Dave about this earlier because I didn't remember myself, and I'm pretty sure he told this story. So I think we're good to go with this one. I think he's already told this to sort of his audience, but it was around Warrior beating the steroid tests by using human growth hormone. Not that he got caught, but he was selling it to the wrestlers to beat the test, him and Bulldog. Like, so they had their growth, and then they were selling it to the guys to beat the tests. And like, holy crap, like amazing. Like, that's this is what's happening in 1993. In the WWE locker room, and Vince is all about steroid testing and we're clean and this and that. So you have that going on in the background, and so he then had to fire Warrior and Bulldog. So Warrior is out, and I know you remember this episode of Primetime Wrestling where they're sort of figuring out who's going to be Savage's partner, and it's Gorilla and it's Bobby. And is it Roddy and Mr. Perfect also on the stage, on the set?
That or Hillbilly Jim or something like that.
Okay, maybe it was Hillbilly Jim. I remembered 4 people, but I couldn't remember if it was Roddy or not. And so Heenan is, and so actually, if you can go backwards a little bit, which is they have a Saturday night's main event, and they do the angle where Warrior and Savage get jumped, and they're setting up Survivor Series, and then at the end of the show, Heenan's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm hearing something about the main event for this show," and then they go off. So like they leave off at like a cliffhanger on Saturday night's main event. So so then they do that whole angle on Monday Night Raw where Mr. Perfect is the one who becomes the replacement for the Ultimate Warrior, and then Heenan gets really angry. They do the match at Survivor Series. That match is not good, by the way. I rewatched it before we were going to do this show because I didn't really remember it, and it's not very good. It's not. It's all about Savage selling. Razor's really bad in that match. And Perfect it's really his first back match in a couple years or however long it was, and he was okay, but it ends in a DQ, and so nothing really happens. Kind of a disappointment. And so from Survivor Series to Raw, I don't really remember what happens during that point. Was there anything else that they did, Flair and Perfect, as far as why they hate each other so much?
No, that was about it. It was just that he turned and teamed with Savage. I remember I remember watching that episode and I was completely confused.
Yeah, it was so weird.
Like when it happened, I was like, "What? Like why?" And I didn't. And he's like, his explanation wasn't even that good. Why he's turning on? I'm back. It's just not the perfect partner. Savage. It was. That was funky. And I don't think Perfect never never really. I mean, he's never the same, obviously, but he's just never really comfortable in that babyface role.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of the backstory to that match, and it's going to be Flair and Perfect on episode 3 of Monday Night Raw, which is actually a taped show. I think they taped both episodes on that night, right? Because so Flair cuts a promo for the live crowd about next week we're going to do this match, and then they actually have that match that night.
Yes, yeah, and also Repo Man versus Macho Man,
and Repo versus Macho. So, very much looking forward to that Monday Night Raw. I think I'm going to zip through the Royal Rumble as well, just to kind of, it's kind of fun to watch things in the order that they were shown live. I kind of want to see. I kind of want to watch the Superstars of Wrestling just to see how they continue to promote those angles, but I don't know if 93 Superstars is on the network.
No, that was just 92 right now, right? Starting in April or something like that, I heard.
Yeah, so that's not up. But anyways, I'll probably zip through the Rumble, and then next week we'll have episode 3 of Monday Night Raw. So far, been pretty fun to go back and watch that stuff.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. Superstar. I'm gonna rewatch Rumble, not the Rumble match, because that match is not that good.
Yeah, I don't remember being very good at all. I just remember being really upset after that match was over.
I mean, it's the first, 10 or entrance is good because you had the Flair, Perfect Stuff is fun, and then you get the Giant Gonzalez debut, and then after that it is just slow go from then on. But the finish of Savage and Yoko, I thought was really entertaining. Other than Savage first, you talk about dumb babyface.
Dumb babyface,
trying to go for the pin on Yoko and him kicking out and I don't. Who came up with that finish? Was it Pat Patterson? Pat's the king of finishes, but if that was one of them, holy shit!
I know, it's really bad.
Yeah.
All right, so next week we'll have all that